And welcome back to the channel. Mr. Acolyte here, coming at you with my visual guide for the all-new balance patch for Guilty Gear Strive. This is the long-awaited, massive, gigantic patch that adds Lucy, ranked match, and all new balance for the entire cast. This is a big one, but we are going to break down everything from the new system mechanics to each and every buff and nerf for every member of the cast. Before we jump into it, if you could consider leaving a like, as it really does help out the video a lot, and I really do truly appreciate it. If you want to see more from me, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the upcoming guides that I'm going to be making for this game and other games as well. But with that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into this visual guide for Guilty Gear Strive. Okay, so starting off with the system mechanic changes this time. The mechanic changes in this version are huge. They're really shaking things up. And as we all know, system mechanic changes are the most important because they affect all characters and basically decide the way the game will be played. So the first major system mechanic that they changed was Risk. Risk, of course, being that little bar underneath the burst. This accumulates every time you block something. So first of all, the amount of risk you gain from every attack has been reduced. What they actually did to Risk is kind of complicated, but I'm gonna do my best to explain it in the simplest way I can. To basically summarize so it's not that complicated, just take a look at this chart here. They put a chart here in the breakdown so that it's easy to understand. If you look at the first pillar, you will see that this is a normal combo from Soul. A normal combo from Soul is going to do 164 damage. If in the old version you blocked enough to add 50% risk, that 164 would shoot all the way up to 223. So that's just how much the damage scaling would pile up from even having 50% risk. So that is a huge damage increase. However, in the current version of the game, that 164 only goes up to 182. Much more manageable. Long story short, high risk bad, low risk not that bad. So overall damage of the game is going to be lower because now when you just block a couple of attacks, you're not going to just explode the next time you get hit. Next universal change is the huge buff to YRC. They substantially buffed the utility of YRC to actually function as a real defensive mechanic. So when a YRC is successful now, it will actually push the opponent away from you instead of leaving them right next to you in a strange strike throw RPS situation. As you can see, with this amount of distance, you can actually go back to neutral and start playing the game again, and you're not left in some sort of weird pseudo strike throw mix-up. On top of that, they also made it possible for you to YRC out of guard crushes. So guard crushes are no longer inescapable. As long as you have 50% meter, you can escape a guard crush, and with the enhanced pushback, the days of being locked in the corner with no options against guard break characters is pretty much a thing of the past. Next universal change is another big one. They nerfed Wake Up PRC. So in case you didn't know, you can, in the previous version, wake up with an invincible super, and as long as you were fast enough, you could PRC it, meaning that you could wake up super, cancel the animation, but keep the invul frames. All of this for just 50 meter. You didn't actually need 100 to wake up safely with a super. Universally, that's out of the game now. If you try to do it, it just flat out doesn't work. So now, if you only have 50% tension, you have to actually decide, do you want to risk waking up with a super, or do you want to just block? But now that you have YRC, honestly, you don't really need to do that as much because the game actually does have a more reliable defensive option. So in my opinion, it kind of balances out anyway. And on to the next universal change, Stagger Escape. Stagger Escape has been completely changed. You no longer have to mash buttons to escape a stagger will now just automatically end when it ends. If you notice, the icon is not even there telling you to mash, it's gone. So that whole idea of like, oh, I've been staggered, I gotta mash to recover, out of the game. And the final system mechanic we're gonna cover is the changes to Wild Assault. All 3 Wild Assaults have been altered to make them all more distinct. Starting with Red Wild Assault. Red Wild Assault is now more of a combo extender, but not a block string extender. As you can see, I'm trying to press close slash, but nothing's coming out. If you Red Wild Assault on block, you now lose your turn. You can only cancel it into attacks if it's on hit. So now this functions, as I said, like a combo extender, but not a block string extender. For Blue RC, it is actually the opposite. It remains strong on block, so characters that have this are designed to be able to, you know, set up their offensive pressure off of this, but it is now significantly weaker on hit. It has higher damage scaling and higher blowback. And then lastly, White Wild Assault lost its ability to be Roman canceled. So if you do White Wild Assault at neutral, you cannot cancel it anyway, you simply lose your turn. So now instead of all 3 of the Wild Assaults kind of like blending together in your mind and kind of feeling the same, they all are much more distinct. To review, the red is for combos, blue is for block, and then white is for neutral. Soul Badguy. Soul's changes focus on increasing his combo potential. His crouching slash now does a stagger on counter hit. Thanks to this new stagger animation, he has better combo options when it hits. The example they give here is that he can now combo into the charged version of Night Raid Vortex. If we do this all together, you get a full launch into a combo. Other than that, they changed his throws a little bit. His forward throw now universally leaves him the same distance from the opponent for every character. It's no longer different per character. Every character is going to be the same distance after a forward throw. And his wild throw can no longer be canceled into. If you do a button, you can't do button into wild throw. You have to do wild throw by itself. So all in all, Soul is pretty much what always happens. They just buffed his combo game, and that seems to be what they do every single patch. Kai. Kai's changes revolve around buffing his shock state. When the opponent is in shock state now, buttons no longer knock them out of it. The purpose of this is to enhance his pressure and combo and Oki game. That all gets enhanced because if the opponent is in shock state now and you do Stun Dipper, the first part of it becomes a launcher to give you more combo options, and the second part becomes a hard knockdown. According to the notes, it gives you plenty of time after this hard knockdown to do his charged fireball, effectively looping them back into the same situation. So now every time he gets shock state, he can basically make something happen, whether it's on hit or on block or on knockdown. And as far as his buttons go, they went ahead and buffed his crouching slash. They enhanced the range on it because they said this move wasn't being used enough. So now it actually has more range than his far slash. If I line this up just to where far slash won't reach, you can see that crouch slash does. So it has just a little bit more range than far slash, but it's still, even from max range, can combo into heavy slash. So basically his buttons got better, his neutral got better, and then his pressure, combos, and Oki got better. So some nice buffs for Kai. May's changes revolve around buffing her normals to get better combo opportunities at neutral. Starting with her far slash, it has less knockback on hit. Because of this, you can now reliably combo it into S Totsugeki. This is also true of crouching S, reduced knockback for this as well. And specifically on crouching S, if it is a counter hit, crouching S will now put them in a stagger state. And thanks to this stagger state, if you combo into Totsugeki from here, you can even get more follow-up. So basically, some of Mei's best buttons just got even better, and she has even more ways of converting at neutral. Axel. Axel's changes revolve around buffing his reward for landing hits at neutral. Starting with Snail, Snail now gives a hard knockdown on hit. So whenever the opponent gets hit by this, they can no longer tech up, meaning that you are free to either take some space or run in for some pressure, and they have to just stand up off the ground and deal with whatever you have planned after that. The notes here recommend using it off of 2P and Far S. It also works off of 5P. So he has a lot of ways of just getting a hard knockdown now, which is very, very strong. They also went ahead and buffed his 6K. This no longer gives a wall bounce. Instead, it does a tumble. The purpose of this is to give him conversions everywhere, not just in the corner. So now you're able to full screen combo this into Sickle Flash and Winter Mantis. So all in all, Axel gets way more off of his stray hits, which is going to make his zoning even more powerful. Chipp. Not too much to report for Chipp this time. He only received one change. It's a buff. They went ahead and buffed his sweep. They reduced the forward hurt box on it during the startup, so it functions better as a poke at neutral. So now when you are just challenging the opponent in the neutral space, you have a more reliable poke that is harder for the opponent to counter poke. They say that it has less range than his Far Slash, but due to it having a smaller hurt box, it gives you basically more options of how to poke your opponent at neutral. Potemkin. Pot's changes are focused around toning down his incredibly powerful options to give them more risk reward. Starting with Hammerfall. Hammerfall has had its movement speed and duration reduced. So as you can see, it goes a shorter distance and travels much slower than before. Obviously, if you do the cancel, this affects it even more. They said that no longer will he get good Oki after a pot buster or a slide head. So if you land slide head and then Hammerfall afterwards, you're not going to get quite to the opponent, even if you do the cancel. Speaking of slide head, they went ahead and removed the armor on it. It no longer has armor to strikes or projectiles. This is to make it more of a balanced attack that the opponent has to be more careful about. In the notes, it says that they want it to be more of a risky move. Keeping on with that mindset, they also toned down Mega Fist, the forward version. The forward version, you can probably already tell, it moves forward more slowly. They increased the startup on it to make it easier for the opponent to react to. But it's not all nerfs. They did go ahead and buff the flick. The flick now comes out a few frames faster. So all in all, Pot is a bit nerfed. He was a character that most considered to be severely overtuned. So we'll see if these are the changes he needs to be more of a balanced grappler and less of a menace. Faust. Faust changes revolve around improving the viability of his pokes. Starting with Far Slash, the knockback has been reduced. Whether on hit or on block, you can see they don't really move at all when you hit them with Far Slash now. So if you do Far Slash, Crouch Slash, according to the notes, it should hit way more reliably, even from max range. And they also went ahead and buffed his forward H, the overhead. Now when the opponent gets hit by the overhead, instead of staggering, they will get launched from this. According to the notes here, whenever you connect this, it should be easier to connect. According to the notes, when you connect this, it should be easier to combo into both Mix, Mix, Mix and Thrust from this anywhere on screen. And speaking of Mix, 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 they went ahead and buffed this as well. If you hold down back on the final hit, it will give you a ground bounce where you can follow up with a close S. So all in all, some nice little quality of life changes and some better conversions off of his buttons. Milia. The focus of Milia's changes are to buff her lesser used moves. Starting with Artemis, her new move. This move got a couple of unique buffs. First of all, it actually triggers a full knockdown on hit. So with that extra little bounce, you get more options. You can, try to force tech them up, or you can just take the knockdown and get ready to apply some Oki. And to enhance it even further, they reduce the hurt box to make it better against pokes. So this will just work as a really strong counter poke at neutral. They also buffed Tandem Top. If it connects with the opponent on hit, they have reduced knockback. So if you use this in combos, due to the reduced knockback, again, you can either get better combo options, better Oki options, and it even says here that if you PRC it, due to the knockback, you can actually still get confirmed even if you hit from tip range. So overall, Milia just has more ways of getting her game plan started. Zato 1. Zato received a new move and a lot of buffs, starting with the Eddy life gauge. The Eddy life gauge requirement has been severely reduced. They reduced it by about 2 full seconds. If you notice, or if you play Zato at all, you can tell that is a lot faster. Basically, the time that it takes to fill up this bar, the previous Zato would have only been up to about 65% of his bar. So now you're going to have access to Eddy way more often per match. Continuing on with the gauge, they buffed Eddy's resistance to bursts. In the previous patch, they made it to where if somebody hits Eddy with a blue burst or a YRC, you don't fully lose your bar, you only lose the amount that you spent, but he would still die if he got hit by gold burst. However, in this patch, they are rectifying that. If you hit Eddy with a gold burst, he now only loses the percentage that you had already spent, so effectively, it doesn't really hurt him. Keeping on with the Eddy buffs, they went ahead and buffed Oppose slightly. It now starts its attack 1 frame faster. And the projectile durability is also starts up 1 frame faster. And speaking of projectile durability, they buffed Drunkard Shade, his reflect. There are a lot of projectiles that he cannot reflect in this game. So they went ahead and made it to where if you do Drunkard Shade on a projectile that cannot be reflected, it simply becomes projectile invincible. And then, of course, his brand new move, the Float. By doing 214p, you summon a little Eddy bubble. This bubble will follow you around everywhere, and it acts as if Eddy is out, so it does drain the gauge. Keep an eye on that. But the big difference here is that Eddy is essentially protected while he's in this bubble state. So if I call him and I block, you can see he doesn't die, it just desummons him. So this will give you the opportunity to try to get in on the opponent without constantly having Eddy die. That way, when you actually get in, you can immediately start your Eddy pressure more easily. And speaking of getting pressure more easily, the biggest draw of Float is that you can actually throw Eddy from this stance. Anytime you have him in Float, if you press any of the attack buttons or let go of the attack buttons, of course, you will throw him. P will drop him directly in place. K will throw him way up in the air like a bomb. S will just throw him forward at an arc. And H throws him very far forward at an arc. So basically the idea of this is to very easily get sandwich situations on the opponent. Needless to say, with all these buffs put together, Zato Bros, we are so back. Ramlethal. Ram is seeing some nerfs to her pressure. The notes say that they want the opponent to have more options for getting out of her offense. To make this happen, they have nerfed the sword toss. The frame advantage and amount of guard crush has been reduced. Both the H and S version were roughly plus 30. Now they're both about plus 20. This means she has a whole 10 less frames of frame advantage, meaning that she's going to have less of a chance of keeping pressure on you when throwing swords at neutral. And when she throws swords in the corner, she's going to have to cover that gap really quickly to prevent the opponent from jumping out before the explosion happens. In the same vein, they reworked / nerfed Undo. So Undo is, the reason I say reworked is because it's been both buffed and nerfed. They nerfed the frame advantage on it. So this used to be plus 7. Now it is minus 4. So now if she strings into this, she doesn't get to keep her offense going. Her turn ends right there because there's now a whole minus 4 instead of plus 7. But to sort of offset this, they increased the startup. So they claim that it is a better neutral tool. So now it's sort of like a mid-screen projectile instead of being a block string extension tool. Next up, they also nerfed her JHS. That's right, this move has been driving people crazy since the game came out, and they are finally nerfing it. They heavily nerfed its active frames. So the weapon is no longer an active attack all the way down to the ground. This makes it a lot more easy to 6P. Not only that, if it whiffs, it has a lot more landing recovery. You can see by whiffing the button, I am minus 33. So if the person throws this out, not only can you counter poke it, but they can get punished for landing near you. They also added a bunch of landing recovery to her flip attack. If you do this in the air, it now has 19 frames of recovery instead of 10. So it's going to be a lot easier to punish this if the opponent just throws it out. You could even see it right there, how long it takes her to turn around. So it's going to be very risky for people to just throw this out because it's very likely you're going to punish them for it. But to offset some of these nerfs, they went ahead and buffed her sweep. They increased the range of it so that it'll more frequently combo off of her 5K. So all in all, Ram is definitely nerfed in this patch. How nerfed? It's hard to tell. It's still very early, but as of right now, she is definitely going to be weaker than she was in the previous patch. Leo is seeing adjustments to his overall offense. Apparently, they want it to be more difficult for him to constantly enter stance and continuously apply pressure. Starting with his HDP, it is no longer a hard knockdown, meaning that you do not get guaranteed Oki if you finish any combos with HDP anymore. However, due to the decreased blowback, you do get better meaty options such as a close standing slash. They also nerfed his stance pressure. If he does his overhead out of stance and it gets blocked, it now pushes the opponent away so that he can not just immediately continue offense even though you blocked the mix-up. Even if you cancel the overhead, you will still be plus, but they will be extremely far away. So again, it's going to be hard for him to continue any sort of meaningful pressure if you guess right and block his overhead. To offset some of the nerfs, they did buff his sweep. For his sweep, they reduced the blowback, meaning that the opponent will be closer to you after you connect the sweep. According to the notes, it should make it easier to land his cross-up off of a knockdown. All in all, these do seem like some pretty considerable nerfs, so Leo is not going to be quite as strong as he was in the previous patch. Nagoriyuki. Nago is receiving some nerfs to his neutral and his mix-up potential. According to the notes, they want to limit his potential for surprise attacks and limit the potential of his close range mix-ups. To do this, they did the unthinkable. They nerfed Beyblade. Beyblade is no longer a low attack. If you look here, I'm going to tell Lucy not to block low. Look at me sweep her. She's not blocking low. I'm gonna do Beyblade. It is now a mid. It took 4 years for this. So according to the notes, now if the opponent is walking backwards at neutral, they don't have to worry about Beyblade suddenly clipping them out of nowhere. Not just that, they reduced the cancel window of Shizuyuki, this move right here. So basically they don't want this to be a potent mix-up between a overhead and a Beyblade. I think they just want Nago to be more of a tank character. They don't want him to like lock you down or mix you up. They just want him to be like sort of a crazy sort of tank is what I'm getting from these notes. And sort of in that vein, they buffed his H. So his standing H got a buff. They reduced the horizontal blowback on it, and it no longer blows the opponent away. So the idea here is when you land this, they want you to get better Oki options because they're going to get up a lot closer to you. So again, if you're managing your blood and you get a lot of range on your H, you're going to get even better Oki options when you land these big, huge H's. Overall, Nago does seem like he's going to be weaker than the previous version, but time will tell just how much this is going to affect his overall game plan. Giovanna. Gio's receiving a few slight buffs to some of her special moves. Starting with 214S. This move will now be considered airborne earlier, meaning it should crush lows and just lower pokes more easily. Her dash dance 214H no longer activates proximity guard from the opponent. However, they buffed back kick. It now comes out at a whopping 5 frames. It used to be 13. It's so fast you can actually combo it off of a heavy slash now. Not the craziest buffs ever, but they definitely should help with her hit confirms, which seems to be the main focus of this patch overall for most characters. Anji. Anji received exactly 1 nerf and 1 buff. His nerf is to Midare, the guard break follow-up after his spin. It is no longer plus on block. As you can see, it is now -2. It used to be +11, so he no longer gets to keep his turn after spinning through a button, a jump, or a projectile. However, to compensate this, they went ahead and buffed his crouching heavy slash. While it used to be -4, it is now +6. So he has a plus button that he can use to get his pressure started and just help him generally with his offense. By receiving both 1 buff and 1 nerf, I think it's pretty safe to say that Anji is one of those characters who's probably most likely gonna break even this patch. Ino. Ino is seeing some adjustments to her offense. They said they wanted to tone down some of her more powerful moves to give the opponent more of a chance to counterattack. Starting with Mad Love, her 214S. They sped up the speed at which she moves towards you, but delayed the attack. So the actual attack part of it comes out a few frames slower. This is designed to give you more time to react to it and counterattack it, likely with a 6P. However, when you connect this move, you can see the blowback is greatly reduced, so it's going to be easier for you to get follow-ups if it connects. And outside of that, they went ahead and buffed the range on her heavy slash. Her heavy slash now moves forward when she does it. This is so that it will better connect off of S and 2S. So while she is going to be a little bit easier to counter in some situations, she does have better combo routes and better block string options. So I think she might be another character who in the end sort of breaks even between nerfs and buffs. Goldlewis. Goldlewis is seeing adjustments to his overall offense and most of his moves. They said they want to add more risk to his difficult to counter attacks. Starting with his jump dust, the spooky hands. They greatly reduced the active frames, so now it is harder to just do this at the top of a jump. and make your way all the way to the opponent. You now have to jump and then do the attack on the way down, because it's just not going to be as active as it was before, meaning that it's a lot easier for the opponent to 6p it. Well, not a lot easier, but it's going to be a little bit easier for the opponent to 6p it, and if you do it from too high, it's likely just not going to reach them at all. Of course, Behemoth Typhoon has seen several changes in this patch. So first of all, Air Behemoth Typhoon is no longer a hard knockdown. So if he hits you with Behemoth Typhoon out of the air, you can tech. So all of his air combos, you're no longer going to be in a hard knockdown state for him to get more pressure. And if it connects on counter hit, you now get a heavy counter hit state. So you get that zoom in counter now. Since it's kind of a nerfed move, they made it more powerful on counter hit. And just to reiterate, Goldlewis is one of the biggest characters affected by the new YRC. You can YRC out of Guard Crush now, so Behemoth Typhoon pressure is no longer what it used to be. So to still give it some sort of a kick, they decided to make the counter hit state a little bit more powerful. All in all, with the changes to the system mechanics and the change to his jump dust and the change to his air combos, I do think overall Goldlewis is going to be a bit weaker than the previous version. I don't know if he'll be a weak character because he still has, you know, the drone and the machine gun and all that stuff. So I feel like he'll still probably be strong, but just not as overwhelmingly powerful as he was in the previous version. Jako. Jako only received one major buff in this patch, but in my opinion, it's a pretty fun one. Her countdown command, when she has a minion out, now explodes in roughly half the time as before. So now that it blows up much faster, according to the notes, this should give her better block string options, Oki options, and even neutral options. And to help augment this, they also buffed her defensive command. If you have a minion out and you command it to blow up, if you pull out another one, the second minion can actually use their barrier to block it. So your defensive command can actually absorb the explosion, so you can keep that second minion alive even though the first one just blew up. I'm really eager to see what kind of crazy new setups come from these buffs. Happy Chaos. Chaos is seeing some nerfs in this patch. They went ahead and adjusted his buttons. They're weakening the strength of his buttons at neutral to give the opponent a better chance of counterattacking. Starting with his crouching slash, they increased the recovery on whiff. It used to have 18 frames of recovery. It now has 24. So it's going to be much easier for the opponent to punish this if it gets thrown out and it whiffs. It also has more recovery on block. It used to be -7 on block. It is now -13. They also pretty heavily nerfed his forward slash. They reduced the distance and made it decelerate faster. So as you can see, it basically doesn't go anywhere. This looks pretty crazy. This move has always been like a lunging attack, and it's weird to see it basically not go anywhere. However, he did receive one interesting buff to compensate these nerfs. They buffed Scapegoat. If you do Scapegoat near the opponent, the clones will now appear behind the opponent. So what this does is it acts like a wall. The opponent cannot move past this. So in a way, you can sort of limit the opponent's movement while the Scapegoat is out. And they also reduce the amount of HP it costs to summon a Scapegoat. So now if you're at neutral, you can summon sort of a fake wall to make it a little bit harder for them to get out of your pressure. All in all, it's definitely safe to say that Chaos is nerfed. These are his two best buttons, and they are considerably weaker, especially the 6S. I think the 6S is really going to hurt him. This is like his most used button at neutral in block strings and especially in combos. Not to mention, same thing for 2S. So these two buttons being weaker is definitely going to hurt him in the long run. I'm not sure how much the Scapegoat's going to help him. Maybe people will come up with some cool setups. But as of right now, it definitely seems like he is weaker than before. Baiken. Baiken's changes this patch are sort of a mixed bag. She got a nerf and a couple of buffs to compensate for that. Starting with her Air Yozansen. They reduced the number of active frames on the startup of the attack. This basically means that It's a little bit harder to hit Yozansen from up high in the air. You need to do it closer to the ground, or it's just not going to connect at all. Specifically, the situation they point to in the notes is that it's going to be hard to connect it off of a backdash. Moving on to her buffs, one of them is a little strange. When the parry connects now, it resets your input so that you don't get any accidental follow-ups. And lastly, her crouching heavy slash, the big sweep, this got buffed a little bit. They reduced the knockback on hit. So now when you connect this, the opponent is not really sent away from you anymore. Apparently they did this so that it's easier to combo into Kabari. As you can see, nothing too incredibly crazy for Baiken's changes. I feel like she's another one of those characters that's going to break even since she did receive both buffs and nerfs. Testament. Testament received some pretty considerable buffs to their combos, Oki, and offensive pressure. Starting with their sweep, the knockback has been reduced. So when you land the sweep, they're going to be closer to you. The purpose of this is so that you can connect the H version of Grave Reaper more easily. And speaking of Grave Reaper, that has been buffed as well. The second part of the attack now launches them higher, making it easier for you to connect 5K. Next up, Unholy Diver was buffed, the Crow. So the Crow now, if it hits the opponent, will put them in a knockdown state. When they get hit by this, they cannot tech. If you notice there, the opponent stands straight up. So now if you end any of your combo with the Crow, the opponent has to get up off the ground in Stain state, meaning you just get access to instant Oki and pressure while they have Stain on them. And speaking of Stain, Stain has also been buffed. It will no longer activate by OTG. And if the opponent is down and you tech them up, the Stain will not pop. So you have the option of teching them with buttons or whatever attack and keeping your Stain. So as you can see, Testament has been buffed considerably. Their offense is going to be much stronger. Their Oki is going to be much stronger, and they're just all around going to be a much scarier character. Bridget. Bridget is receiving buffs in this patch. They went ahead and buffed 2 of her special moves to give them a little bit more versatility. Starting with her roll. If you have the yo-yo out and you do the roll, the charge version of the roll now does more damage. It used to do 32, now it does 55. And the next one is kind of a weird one, kind of funny. They buffed Rock the Baby out of the air. So her air command grab now starts up faster. And not only that, you can combo into it. If the opponent is in hit stun, you can now combo into her command grab in the air to finish your air combos. Definitely not the craziest buffs of this patch, but as they say, buffs are better than nerfs. Sin. Sin is seeing some nerfs in order to balance out the risk reward of his insanely powerful offense. Starting with Elphelt. Elphelt can no longer be used as the starter of a combo. This is because of the fact, according to the notes, that it is a low profiling lunging move that excels in neutral. Due to the strength in neutral, even if you do the follow-up, you no longer get a combo opportunity. This is also true for his overhead. If you do the overhead mid-screen, the follow-up no longer allows you to get a natural combo. However, if you do this in the corner, it does cause a wall bounce. They also adjusted Beak Driver. They reduced the tumble duration. So as you can see, the opponent gets up way faster. They also increased the recovery of his 2K. It has just a little bit more recovery, and it's a little bit more negative on block, just a little bit. But to compensate all these nerfs, they did buff his JS. His JS has more active frames and it has a deeper hitbox. They specifically say the purpose of this is to help it be a set play tool after a throw. It is very unlikely that it'll lose to a 6P in that situation. So all in all, it does feel like Sin is definitely weaker than last patch. I'm actually not sure how much weaker. It's kind of hard to tell. I mean, his toolkit is still pretty insane and he still has his reach and his range and he still has the guard breaks on everything. So I just still feel like he'll be strong, but definitely not quite as strong as before. Bedman. Bedman received buffs this patch, both to their neutral and their set play. Starting with 214P, the Fireball. This is a bit of a strange one. The buff only applies to the close version. If you do the Fireball at point blank range, it now has increased pushback. According to the notes, the purpose of this is to use it after crouching heavy slash to return back to neutral. And also if it connects at point blank range on hit, it now launches the opponent. On the Oki side of things, they buffed 214H, basically the head explosion. This move can no longer leave the screen. So no matter how close you are to the edge of the screen, the popped off head will not leave. So now it works as a fantastic corner pressure tool and Oki tool. With better block strings and Oki, it's safe to say that Bedman is looking a little bit stronger this patch. Asuka. Asuka has been buffed, and I'm going to try my best not to gush about it. His buffs revolve around the idea of making his mana more manageable. If you're not aware, in the last patch, they nerfed his mana consumption heavily, and it made him very hard to play. So the idea in this patch is to make his mana management feel easier. Before we get to the actual buffs, though, there is something that I want to point out that's pretty cool and kind of funny. He has brand new voice lines for some of his base attacks. When you do a mana charge with P, he still says the same stuff that he's always said when you do mana charge. But now if you use K, the version that takes away from your tension, he has a brand new voice line. Pretty crazy. If you use the S version, the one that takes away from your health, he has another new voice line. So now based on which strength you use, he has different lines for all three kinds of charges. Pretty cool. But moving on to his actual buffs, the first one is the instant mana recovery card. They increase the amount of mana it gives you back. So before it gave you like a tiny little chunk, I would say like 10%. Now it gives you almost half. You see that? Roughly 40% of your mana back. That is huge. That is definitely gonna help with his mana management. Getting 40% back every time you do that is actually crazy. Next, they buffed the low pass gravity staff. This is the staff that makes the cubes heavier. The cubes will now bounce off the ground. This is actually a huge buff because pre-patch, the cubes would sort of roll over the floor, and it made it really easy for the opponent to just jump over them. But now that they bounce like that, they're going to be way more powerful at neutral. Next is without a doubt the craziest change. No one could have predicted this. They restructured the way his ice spike works. Up until now, this has been a DP. It's just like, you know, Asuka's one get off me tool. If you had this, you know, it was invincible to strikes and throws. But now it is a regular attack card, and if it hits the opponent, it freezes them. Just like Dizzy. It's literally the exact same thing. You can freeze them, run up and hit them 2K, 2D them, whatever. The applications of this are going to be so insane because not only that, it's no longer insanely negative on block. This used to be like minus 25. Now it is plus 10, and you can chant it like you would anything else. So you can do it and then mana charge. You can do it and then throw other cubes. You can throw other cubes into it. whatever you need to do. You can even do this, which is so crazy. So now, let's say you have all your meter set up, you can literally do this. Crazy. And to augment this buff to the ice, they actually added one ice card to test case 2. This is pretty crazy because it used to be the ice card was only in test case 1, but now a single ice card is also available in test case 2. So they really want you using this new freeze mechanic. And speaking of harmonics, this is my favorite buff. They reduced the mana depletion on harmonics itself. So now when you pop super, the mana goes down much more slowly than before. It still picks up over time. So if you take too long, it will drain all your mana, but it's much, much slower than before. So there's definitely enough time to get what you want and get out of there before you lose a considerable amount of mana. Honestly, these changes I feel are exactly what Asuka needed. I feel like he is much, much better than before because his biggest problem was managing his mana. Now that it's going to be a bit easier to do, I feel like the character is going to be much more fun to play. Johnny. Most likely a surprise to absolutely nobody, Johnny has been nerfed. The notes say they wanted to revise his ability to quickly close distance and easily go on the offensive. To do this, they nerfed his forward and backdash. His forward dash has decreased movement speed. You can definitely tell the difference. And his backdash has much more recovery. It used to have 18 frames and now has 22. For his backdash, it says he actually goes back a little bit further, but he just has more recovery to compensate for that. So both his forward and backdash are just weaker than they were before, so it's going to be harder for him to apply constant pressure to you. His heavy slash now has more knockback. So if the opponent blocks it, it's going to push them further away, again, making it more difficult for him to apply pressure after they block a heavy slash. His vault attack has also been nerfed. They reduced the time where you can throw the card afterward. They said this is so that it is easier to counterattack. Now when he's flipping at you, you have more time to 6p him out of the animation before he can throw the card. But he did receive one single buff to help offset some of these nerfs. His far slash. It has less pushback on hit. This is so that it can more easily combo into far slash on hit. So at the cost of his weaker offense and movement, he does have a better far slash, which was already a really strong button. So pretty decent compromise right there. All things considered, I do think Johnny is pretty strongly nerfed. I can already see a lot of people have been saying that he's dead. I'm not sure if he's dead, but yeah, he is absolutely nerfed. Elphelt. Elphelt has been nerfed. According to the notes, they want her offense to feel easier to deal with. In order to do that, they reworked her Rekka. If you do 214S, also known as Here I Go, you can no longer reset the Rekka infinitely. If you do 214S, no matter what you do, honestly, you can only do up to 3 attacks. So 1, 2, 3, Rekka's over. You can't do it anymore. After that, you lose your turn. So now when she goes on the offense with her Rekka, she has to specifically choose what 2 follow-ups she wants to do, and she can't just repeat the Rekka pressure forever. Next up, her bomb super has also been readjusted. If you put the bomb belt on the opponent, it will now disappear if Elphelt gets hit. However, she did receive one buff to offset the nerfs. Her follow-up to HS. If you do HS, it no longer launches the opponent and now puts them in a stagger state. And thanks to the stagger state, you can now combo into her lariat on normal hit. Overall, I do feel Elphelt has been nerfed, but I don't feel like her strength as a character has really been hit that hard. She still has her unreactable high-low. It's just that her Rekka is a little bit more limited, and her neutral and her general offense is still kind of the same. It's just some of the stuff that was kind of weird is gone now, like the bomb being unescapable, you know, is gone, and then being able to do the Rekka forever is gone. So those two things are gone, but I don't think it's going to hurt her overall game plan in the end. a.b.a. a.b.a.'s adjustments are another one that I would call a sort of mixed bag. According to the notes, they wanted to limit the power of her aggressive offense and jealous rage, but they also wanted to make it a little bit easier to manage her jealousy gauge. So she got one jealous nerf and one jealous buff. Let's go ahead and take a look real quick. So starting with the nerf, when she's in jealous rage now, the overhead attack, you know the one, the main attack that she uses, it is a little bit weaker now. It had its hurt box expanded downward, so it's more likely to lose to most attacks now. It's harder for it to jump over buttons. And then her buff is pretty straightforward. Now, if the opponent is in a throw animation, it will pause the jealous gauge. So if the jealous gauge is going down, it'll pause during throws. This is designed to help you keep your jealous gauge while not being penalized for landing a throw while in jealous rage mode. This is an interesting one because both the nerf is pretty substantial and the buff seems pretty substantial. The fact that her overhead is not going to jump over buttons is really big because that's kind of like what was so dangerous about it. So that being gone is huge. But at the same time, her throws being more threatening while in jealous rage is a really good buff. So I feel like she's one of those characters that's probably going to break even. I guess time will just have to tell on this one. Slayer. Slayer is yet another character that is receiving both nerfs and buffs. For his nerfs, they wanted to make moves that were very difficult to deal with more manageable, but for his buffs, they wanted to give him better options for converting off of his faster buttons. Starting with nerfs, crouching heavy slash has been nerfed. You can probably already tell, but the horizontal blowback has been increased. So the opponent flies further away, meaning that if he hits this attack from a distance, it is harder for him to get a big you're gonna die combo from this. Master's Hammer, the jumping slam move, got both nerfed and buffed at the same time. The guard crush duration is increased, so you can probably tell just by looking at it, the opponent is stuck in guard crush for way longer when they block it. However, if the opponent reads the attack and jumps out of the way, it has more landing recovery, so it's easier to punish on the way down. And for his buffs, they're actually kind of substantial. Both stand P and crouch P can now both be comboed into the K version of Mappa. So now no matter what hit he gets, he can start going into his offense from just about any button. So this is another one where I feel like it's kind of hard to tell where he's actually going to fall at the end of the day. Once again, time is going to have to tell on this one. Queen Dizzy. Dizzy has received pretty considerable buffs in this patch. According to the notes, the focus of these buffs was to help sustain her long-range game as well as improve her Oki. Starting with her buttons, her far slash has a smaller hurt box. So this being a huge poke that it is going to be harder for the opponent to challenge. They also buffed the distance on her crouching slash. According to the notes, this is designed to keep opponents at bay that are trying to run up to you. For her special move, they heavily buffed the ice spike. It now has almost twice as many active frames, meaning it stays on the screen a lot longer, meaning it's a lot easier for the opponent to run into it at neutral. And probably the most crazy buff of all, S. Michael's sword is now a hard knockdown. So it no longer does a tumble, it's just a straight up hard knockdown that sends them full screen. So while they're knocked down, you can start your neutral game, you can run up to get Oki, you have a lot of options off of this. It's especially potent in the corner for very obvious reasons. And when paired with the new ice, you can get some very crazy ice meaty setups. While Dizzy's overall game plan is still going to be kind of the same, I do feel that these new tools are going to make her a lot more threatening, both in neutral and especially in the corner if she scores a knockdown. Venom. Venom has been added to the game. It is easy to say that he is definitely the most buffed character of this entire patch, and he is most likely the winner of this patch. He has a whole lot of buffs, starting with the duration of the balls on screen. So anytime you put a ball on the screen and you hit it, it will remain on screen for a longer amount of time so that you can reuse it. This is to give him way more neutral options, block string options, and Oki options. So just off of this one change alone, he's gonna have a lot more utility all around. To work together with this change, almost all of his normals have been revamped in the way they react when they hit a ball. So for standing P, the ball movement speed has been increased. So just by doing this, if you hit the ball, it moves faster than it did before. So for the rest of his buttons, they adjusted the hitbox. It's kind of hard to explain, but basically think about it this way. Each attack that I'm about to list has a better hitbox towards a ball, not necessarily towards the opponent, but towards a ball specifically. So when you're doing these attacks, just think about it like this, that the hitbox will be bigger for any ball on screen, but when attacking the opponent, the actual attack will be exactly the same. These attacks are standing K, standing heavy slash, jumping K, jumping slash, and jumping heavy slash. So all these attacks, the way they interact with balls has been basically buffed so that it's just easier to do setups and you get basically more setups out of each ball set. In terms of buttons that can hit the opponent, crouching heavy slash has had its blowback adjusted. So now when you connect this, the opponent is going to be closer to you. That is designed to work better in combos. They also went ahead and buffed Carcass Raid. The S version has been heavily buffed. The overall recovery has been reduced, and the advantage on block has been increased. So this is no longer negative. The S version is now plus. It's +5 on block. According to the notes, this is going to make it much more viable in a wide range of situations, including neutral strings and combos. And for the H version of Carcass Raid, they reduced the movement speed of balls struck by this move in order to give it a bit more utility and individuality. So needless to say, due to the fact that everything about Venom has been buffed, I'm pretty sure that most people consider him the winner of the patch, and it's nice that they finally decided to add him to the game. Unika. As the most recent character in the game besides Lucy, according to her notes, she has not been in the game long enough to get any sort of significant changes. So the only thing they changed was her 236K. It now has a horizontal proximity requirement, which is a fancy way of saying the opponent needs to be near you for it to actually hurt them. According to the notes, this is designed to stop it from hitting behind her and just make it easier to punish if it whiffs. As Unika is a almost still brand new character, I feel like most people would agree it's a little too early to be changing her, so she'll definitely have to wait for the next patch to see how she fits into the game and see what kind of changes she might need in the future. And with that, we have covered all the major changes in the rank match / Lucy balance patch. In my opinion, much like others have said on Twitter already and just online in general, I feel like this has the potential to be the best balance patch Arxis has ever done. On paper, most of the changes seem great. Basically, they did what everybody wanted. They pushed up the low tiers, kept like the mid tiers basically where they were, and then nerfed the top tiers down. So push the lows up, knock the tops down, and then hopefully more people can meet in the middle, and I feel like that is the best direction. Honestly, it feels like this game has a direction now. Like they actually have like a focus. I like the idea that they're like, okay, this move's a little too strong, so we're gonna tone it, but then, you know, we'll help you with this. We'll give you this little tool over here, just so that you have a better situation over there. And basically just keeping the characters fun, but not overpowered. Because I kind of said it during the breakdown, but I feel like most of these characters, even the ones that got nerfed, I feel like they still are retaining their identity. Like most characters that got nerfed, like, yeah, their tools are weaker, but their strengths are still basically there for the most part, and their identity as a character is still there for the most part. So I feel like that's what's important. It's character identity and characters just being fun. So yeah, definitely let me know what you guys think. I'd love to hear from you guys. Let me know what you think about this patch. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think about the changes? What's your favorite change? Which characters are you looking forward to taking a rank? Yeah, definitely let me know. I'm really excited to jump into rank match myself. I can't wait to test out the Asuka buffs. I can't believe they actually buffed him. I actually still can't believe that. I didn't think he was going to get anything, but man, he got a lot of buffs. That's crazy. Yeah, if you could leave a like on this video, again, it really helps me out a lot, and I really do appreciate it, especially on videos like this that take a lot of time and effort. It really does help a lot. I truly, truly appreciate it. Subscribe if you want to see more from me. I got a lot more Strive content coming, as well as other games like Grand Blue and DBFZ and all that good stuff. If you want to see more from me, check out the playlists in the description or at the end of the video. I got a lot of playlists in both, so check that out if you get the chance. You can also come hang out with us live on Twitch, where we play a lot of fighting games and variety and all that good stuff. You definitely are welcome to come chill with us in the Twitch gang, twitch.tv/Mr. Acolyte. But with all that being said, once again, I appreciate you guys. Y'all have a good one, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.